Hello Foggies, and welcome to this week's episode 14 of The Foggy Author. If we haven't met before, my name is Brett Jackson. This is Hoggy, and together we write books through the haze of brain fog. In this week's episode, I'll be discussing updates on Time Clone's Book 2, why I haven't been uploading on a regular schedule for the last few weeks, this week's book recommendation, and a short story I wrote from a prompt in a writing group about Rapunzel. My Writing Life. In this week's My Writing Life, I have updates about Time Clone's Book 2. My beta readers have been busy checking out the book, and they've got back to me with some comments and corrections. So I'm now editing these comments to fix any plot holes, grammar or typos I've missed. Once this section is done, the book will go back to the beta readers, and then I hope to be able to show you a cover and reveal the title. Now, some of you may have noticed that my uploading schedule has been a bit haywire over the last few weeks, and others have probably worked out why. The summer holidays. Great when you're a child, you get 6 to 8 weeks off school. Fun when you're a parent, you have to juggle jobs and children, and even more fun as a grandparent as grandchildren pop around at a moment's notice to see their grandparents. This has meant lots of special moments, watching and playing as they grow up, and spending precious time with them. It also means squeezing my timetable as an author, and since these moments are so unmissable, we want to make the best of them. As a full-time author, this means I get the chance to watch what's going on when I'm not writing, and soon rack up lots of cool stories to tell, maybe even in my books. As we come to the end of the summer holidays, you can expect to see more of me on a regular basis as the grandchildren go back to school, and that means more episodes of the Views Letter and more chapters of Time Clone's Book 1. So stick around and soak up all that glorious content, and feel free to join in. I'm always looking for questions to answer in the Ask the Author segment. Ask the Author. There are no questions this week. I guess you've all been on holiday. Hope you've enjoyed it. Now that you're back, if you'd like to ask the author something, please leave your questions in the comments. Book of the Week. This week's Book of the Week is Portals of Norwich, a Norwich-based time travel fantasy adventure. Cassie Fox's life has never been simple. She sees ghosts, hears disembodied voices, and events from history have a habit of rising up to haunt her. On a visit to the Castle Mall shopping centre in Norwich in the hot summer of 2018, Cassie finds herself transported back to the early 1990s in the company of a woman called Kay, who not only looks familiar but claims she's encountered Cassie many times before. But what secrets does Kay hold? Who is the mysterious busman they keep encountering, and exactly who or what is chasing them both across Norwich's past? This is only the start of an adventure which takes part in several famous Norwich fires, local ghosts, and a bus that fell through the road surface into some abandoned chalk caves. As usual, the link for this book is in the description. Featured article. In this week's featured article, I've decided to include a short story that I wrote based on a prompt from a writing group I'm a part of. The prompt is 3 good reasons why a princess can't also be a crime-solving detective. An original story by Brett Jackson. No AI was used, as usual, in the writing of any of my works, including this document. Dear Diary, It feels like forever ago since I wrote with you, and so much has changed since my last entry. It still hurts, you know, mentally and physically. It turns out that being locked in that tower until my hair grew so long that the prince could use my hair to climb into my bedroom was not such a great idea after all. Why? Because he pulled his way up the side of that wall, and I didn't realise how heavy he was. But it didn't matter. I loved him so much, and that's why I'm going to go to his funeral. It's also the reason why I'm going to find out who did it. But I need to find some clues. I know that he wasn't the one who locked me in the castle to start with, because my mother Gothel is now since dead. After all, if my long hair was keeping her youthful, that would be the perfect reason for me to have a shoulder-length cut instead. So, I need to find out who did kill my love by hacking off my hair halfway up the tower, resulting in his untimely demise. My questions are: who has access to the castle? Who has the motive? Who hates me that much? Well, I finally worked it out, but first let me explain how, dear diary. I woke up that day. It was a Tuesday, I think, and I'd already received a text from the prince. He said he was leaving his wife, and that today was going to be the day to break free for both of us. He had it all planned out. 8 a.m. Wake up and go downstairs to make breakfast. 8:30 a.m. Go and tend to the horses. 9:30 a.m. Take Neddy to the shops in search of his wife's favourite food, whilst secretly packing the supplies he'd put together for our happily ever after, and then secretly escape to the castle. 10 a.m. Climb Rapunzel's hair and then escape the castle and live happily ever after. It was all going so well. He texted he was on his way, and he even sent me a selfie of himself with Neddy. Gosh, he does love that horse. The plan was running like clockwork, and at 10 o'clock he'd arrived at my castle. I remembered because he called to me. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Well, for me it was a bit of a bad hair day. I'd already had some birds nesting in it last week, but this week seemed worse. I have no idea how this hair kept my mother so youthful, because all it seemed to do for me was give me more stress than ever and making me feel older than I am. Anyway, I digress. Oh yes, it was a bad hair day. So many knots and split ends, and I hadn't had the chance to wash it in the last couple of days either. I wrapped my hair round the bedpost, tied it in a 3-cord rope, and it was ready for him to climb. After letting my hair down, I felt it go taut. With each step, he got closer and closer, and I could hear him puffing and huffing. Although I didn't see him fall, I could still hear the snip of the scissors and the screams as he fell to the ground. Thankfully, when the police came to see the crime scene, my mother, who I later found out had faked her own death, had no choice but to let them roam the castle, and that gave me the opportunity to do some investigation of my own. I think I counted 259 steps, and judging by his gait and the time he took to climb, I did the maths, and that puts him as being at the window just below mine. So who was in that room? Checking the castle's guest book was a bust. Whoever had signed in at 9 a.m. that morning was clearly using an alias. After all, I hadn't heard of anyone called Femme Passionate. Chatting to the chief inspector didn't give me any leads either. He seemed to be asking more questions about why the prince was there instead of who killed him. So I walked around the castle looking for more clues. As I ventured down one of the corridors, I noticed a small door to a room I didn't recognise. Perhaps whoever lives there might have seen something. The door opened as I knocked it, and sensing no one was there, I walked inside. The wall was covered in security monitors, and it suddenly dawned on me that this was the castle's security room. Typing into the console, I found that day's video. I saw my knight in shining tinfoil arrive on his trusty steed, and I watched in horror as he started to climb, not wanting to see the rest. I needed to review the footage from 9 a.m. and find out who killed my love. As I pieced together the movements of a hooded figure in the courtyard and followed it as it walked through the cloisters toward the tower, my home, my prison for the last 2 years, things started to become clearer. I watched as the figure climbed the stairs, which is stupid because the lift has worked for the last 3 weeks. But anyway, the figure got to the top of the stairs, carefully avoiding the cameras and keeping a low profile. Then it stopped at my mother's door and knocked. I thought my mother had been dead for a while and the room was empty. So who could this cloaked figure be knocking up? I watched as the door opened and the cloaked figure entered. Then watched as the recording switched from the outside of the room to a camera inside of the room, and as 2 people embraced, I shuddered. One of these had killed my love, and I had to find out who. The image became blurry as they parted their embrace, and for the next 20 minutes they engaged in, well, you know. But I still couldn't see who they were, and if I told you what they got up to, you'd have to spend $8 a minute just letting me write about it, if you know what I mean. I fast-forwarded the tape, and I saw a glimpse of something, so I wound it back. I thought it was a man and a woman, but to my surprise it was an old hag, and someone my age. The old hag was my mother. And the woman, I'd seen her before, but I couldn't place her face. Following more of the footage, it was obvious that she was looking at the window as something had interrupted their intimacy, and I could see my hair dangling from the window above. When the prince arrived at the window below mine, he was in shock to see them both, and that was when I remembered who she was, and the whole thing fell into place. You see, while the prince was having an affair with me, his wife was having an affair with my mother, who'd faked her own death to keep it quiet. The prince had come to set me free, and while he was tending the horses, his wife had snuck out to have a bit with my mother. I shuddered at the thought. So, when the prince climbed the tower, he must have been so surprised that they were together that he simply slipped and fell off the hairy rope to his death. And the snip of scissors I heard was my mother stealing my hair to regain her youthful looks. And that, as they say, is that. My mother and the prince's wife are now both in prison for trying to cover up the death of the prince, and for my efforts, the police made me an honorary detective, and the chief told me he'd love to work with me again in future. And so I finished this entry by saying that 3 reasons why a princess can't be a crime-solving detective are simply these: my thirst for justice, my keen observational skills, and lastly, my brains. Signed, Detective Rapunzel. And that's all for this week. Please subscribe, and I shall see you all again in the future.